Hey, what's up everyone? Jonathan Allen here at Floodwater Studios again. This week we're going back into Studio One and we're learning about the mix window. Let's jump into it. So in the last video we went over the basics of just getting Studio One started, creating a new session, naming everything, saving everything where you need it, adding some tracks, getting those tracks named and colored so we can find things very quickly, very easily when we're inside of a session. And today we want to hop into that mix tab that's on the bottom right hand side. So let's go ahead and pull that up right now and we'll keep going. Alright, so now we're back into the session that we created last week. We have our 9 tracks here: the kick, snare, overhead left and right, bass, electric, electric 2, acoustic, and vocal. And then we pulled everything up down here in the bottom right hand side where it says mix. So if you turn that off, your faders go away. You turn that on, they come up. Now one thing you could also do up here in the view section of the menu, it's also called console. So if you turn console off in the view, it closes your mix window. You could turn console back on, or F3 on the keyboard. That'll pull everything up as well for you. So inside this mix window, there's a lot of different options you have here. We're just going to maximize everything real quick so we have a little more view for things. So everything can be moved. As you can see, you can change the height on things, so your inserts, your sends, the actual channel itself. A couple things, though, that I want to go over is, what does all this stuff mean that's on here? Everything that's in here, what do these things mean? So first of all, your inserts, they are your plugins. When you're throwing things on that channel, changing sounds, adding some EQ boost, or striking out some EQs that you don't need, taking away your sends. We'll get into most of this a little later too, for sure, with other videos. The sends are really going to help with so much. Everything, I feel like everything could go on an aux send, and a lot of times your time-based delays, you can get multiple things on one send, reverbs, things of that nature. Right here where it says none, when you click on that, essentially you can choose which input from your audio interface that you're recording from, what your source is set into. So if you look, I have a bunch of different things set up on mine. Now, I have 2 different interfaces that are hooked up together right now. We went over this in a different video that we had done in the past. So if you go over in the same window all the way to the left where it says I/O, that's your audio input-output setup. So if you click into this, I have an aggregate created to link my 2 audio interfaces together. I have my Scarlett 18i20. Now, up to channel 8, that's how many XLR inputs I have. But my inputs for 7 and 8, I actually have them set to my Scarlett 2i2, which is a 2-channel interface that's running my 2 tube preamps by Art. And I'll put a link to those down in the description in case you wanted to take a look at them. They're really cool little preamps. I did replace the tubes in them, so I got a little bit more out of them when it's coming in for some tones. And if you get them, I would suggest replacing the tubes, but that's not for this video. So I have this set up for my studio. Now, depending on what interface you have, you may only have 2 inputs, which is perfectly fine. That's not a problem. So once you have everything set up there, you can choose what channel you want to record. So right now, if I choose channel 2 for say, actually if I choose channel 1, that is always set up to an instrument cable for me. So it's going to be set to a guitar or something that just takes a regular 1/4-inch instrument cable. So you can choose your inputs here. The output section, I have a couple different monitor mixes that I have set up in the studio for our headphones, so different people can hear different things while we're recording, depending on what they need. You can set it to main out. When you start adding aux sends, it could send to those, it can send to folders. There's different ways that you can get to use that, and it all depends, again, how you need to use it. But we can get into a lot of that later as well. Right here is your pan knob, or slider, I guess I should say. So you can go left and right, you can go center, however you need to do that. Panning things is definitely key in mixing, and we will also touch on that in later videos. Lots of content coming out for this, and we're very excited for it. Again, just like you have up here, you have your mute, your solo, record, enable, and monitor. You have those right here as well. You also have your fader. So your fader, you can move, up and down. You need it louder, you need it quieter, however you need to do that. Now, one thing I like to say with the faders is you can actually do a quick hotkey. If you're on Windows, it's the window key. If you're on Mac, it's the Apple key. You hold that down, you click on it, it goes back to 0. That's true for panning as well. If you throw something over and you're like, no, that needs to be centered, hold the Apple key on Apple, Windows key on Windows, click, back to center. So it puts everything right back to the home position for things. Down here, we have our channel editor. So the channel editor is actually really cool. This was in a recent update from Studio One. It takes everything that you see on this little channel strip, and it expands it. So you have a bigger window to work with if you're honing in on one specific channel strip. Everything that's here is here, just larger. So it makes it pretty nice when you're needing to focus on one specific channel strip there. Over here on the left-hand side too, you can see all the tracks we have. So these really is the only thing that I work with on these. If you just need to hide something, you click the little white circle that's next to it. It will hide a track in your mixer. So you can kind of clean things up, work on specific things, or say you don't need drums in your session, you can turn your drum channels off, essentially, hide those to where you won't need to see them at all. But you can turn them back on, however you'd like to do things. One of the things that I also really recommend, especially when you're using the interface, you have everything set up. If you come over here to your options, so the little wrench that's over here, you click on that. I come down to the channel components and I look for input controls. I like to turn input controls on because this shows you some options that actually come in coordinates with the interface. So you have your gain levels right here. You can gain things up if things are a little too quiet. You can pull them down if they're a little too hot. Now you can also do this on your interface itself. It has a gain knob for each input that you have. But this gives you a slightly more control. You set everything on your interface how you think it should sound, and say it's just a little too quiet, just a quick little grab up here, bump it up just a little bit, too loud, bring it down just a little bit. It's definitely something I like to have. And then you can also change your polarity. So if, especially on snare drums, if you're recording with 2 microphones, sometimes they can be a little off. Maybe you flip the polarity on one of those. When you click it, it turns green, and then those 2 mics may sound better together. So it's always nice to just mess with those and see if it sounds better flipped or if it sounds better standard. There's always options when it comes to recording, and that's the beauty of it. There's some guidelines that we need to follow to have things professional and sound good, but a lot of it is experimentation, very much experimentation. Another thing that I want to mention is inside the mix window here, say you have all your tracks set up and you forgot to name them or color them up here. You can do that also down here. So where you have your names down at the bottom, now if it's not named, it's going to say track 1, track 2, track 3. If you just double click, again, you can type it in, tab over, it's going to go to the next track also. And then if you just click in the color section of that, you can start coloring things as well. So you can do it in multiple places. This is just a basic overview of the mix window, just showing you, like I said, some pretty basic things that are in here. There's a lot more in-depth things that we're going to be touching on later down the road with these video tutorials, especially when you get into grouping and, like I said, the sends, doing an aux send, doing some plugin inserts. On the next video, we're going to hop into actually setting some levels, and we're going to start recording something. So the ultimate goal for this entire series that we're doing is the song that we record within Studio One as we're teaching on how to do things and showing the process for everything. We're going to release that song as a single at the end of this series. So if you have any questions or comments, drop them below in the comment section. Go ahead and like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you can see the next video that's coming out. You'll get notified right away. And if you have any suggestions for the song while we're recording, throw it down in the comments. We would love to look at those and see if it's something that we could use or maybe something we didn't think about. Because that's the great thing with music. Collaborating, always learning something new, and we really hope that we can catch you on the next one. Have a good night, everyone.